Hi guys, it's Chloe and welcome back to my channel, but I know I'm not in my usual spot right now. However, I did something very special where I went to an accessible playground for the first time. And I'm so excited to get into this video, and on that note, we're going to get started. So I went on Wednesday during the day, like at 10 in the morning, and I will say it was my county public school spring break, so it was a little bit more people-y than usual. So that's why you'll see a little bit more cars, people, etc. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I came here, but the main reason is because I'm an adult advisory board member for the Spina Bifida Association's Georgia, Tennessee chapter, and the Spina Bifida Association aims to promote research, education, and advocacy efforts for individuals impacted by spina bifida, their families, and clinicians. And every year, as part of the many activities that the Spina Bifida Association does, their chapters do what's known as a walk and roll, where you are able to do a couple of laps around a park. And we also have food and we have vendors. We also have some resource tables. Like, for instance, we may have a wheelchair company that has a table there, or a catheter company, etc. But these events are my favorite events of the year, other than Tail on the Hill, and it's just a lot of fun to be able to meet up in person with your friends that you've met online or you've met in person at previous events. Now, one of the roles of being an adult advisory board member, just an advisory board member in general, is helping to plan the walk and roll. So last year we used a different site, and the site that we used, which we had been using since post corona, the parking spaces, which there wasn't a lot of, BT dubs, and the bathrooms were like almost a half a mile away from the pavilion that we were using. And a lot of our friends have neurogenic bladder, meaning when they have to go to the bathroom, they have to go to the bathroom, and they have to cath, stuff of the like. And getting to the bathrooms wasn't always as feasible. And also, the playground was not wheelchair accessible. And I just didn't like that in general. And also, for our friends that can walk, but not really for distance, you know, getting to their cars would be really hard. Also, with the park that we used last year, typically if you want to use it again, the day after you've rented out the park, you can reserve it again for next year. However, they had changed the rules, and apparently we weren't allowed to reserve the park until May of this year for October. And that wasn't really going to work out for us because we wanted to get the sponsors and vendors as quickly as possible. And in order to do that, we have to tell them where it's going to be, because these people book up very quickly. And basically, I didn't like the park that we used last year, and I made it known. And my walk and roll chapter manager person thing, she basically said that she was looking into other parks for, what would be this year's walk and roll. And I said I'd love to help out. So I looked into a bunch of different parks. And with this one, you know, because I'm a resident of the county in which this park is located in, and the SBA is a nonprofit, basically we would get a discount. I had also sent my chapter manager over a couple of others, but the others were too expensive. And it was a toss up between this one, and we had the other one that we used last year as a backup. And we were finally able to get permits and everything cleared with this park, so we are going to be using it. I am not going to say what this park is because I don't want any creep bags to figure out where I live, but I'm going to give you guys a tour of the park and point out what makes it accessible and stuff of the like. So if you see me doing random hand motions, this is because with this portion of the video, which is the longest part, I actually filmed it for our chapter manager and I'm giving it to her. That way, you know, she can see what the park looks like and they're going to save the video for our future walk and rolls should we choose to use this site again next year. So basically, we have a covered pavilion and it's got like tables with benches, and you can move the tables and benches. Unlike the previous park that we were at, where they were bolted into the ground and therefore you couldn't do it, they also have electrical outlets in the pavilions, which is really great for like the DJ. It's also really good for any other things that need power. Like we had a slow mo booth last year and that needed power as well. So that works out really well. Now, by all means, you know, if there wasn't any power, like our site that we used last year didn't have power, you can always rent a generator, but this saves us a little bit of money. And now we're going to be moving over to the legitimate playground. So if you see me going very fast, I'm not a fast walker. I am in my wheelchair. And if I'm going faster than usual in the video, that means I'm going downhill and I like speed. So you know I'm going to go fast. And sorry, not sorry for anyone that gets turned into a human bowling ball pin. But as you can see, the walkways are paved, which is exactly what we need because pushing a wheelchair and anything other than paved is like multiplying by zero. You're just not going to get anywhere. And I am just going around the perimeter, just showing you guys the whole perimeter area. And then this is the accessible playground. And as you can see, there is like some paved stuff and there's like turf, but it's like artificial and it's not the real thing because typical playgrounds use wood chips. And the thing is that with wood chips are impossible to get through with a wheelchair or a walker or anything of the like. And plus, even if you wear AFOs, a lot of individuals with spina bifida struggle with, balance and uneven terrain. So that is why. And now we are moving on to the actual park itself. There are ample benches around, so even if you can walk but need a break, you can sit down and do that. And then there is a bunch of parking where you can park your cars, and there's a bunch of accessible like parking spaces. And I didn't see any like people trying to, park there illegally that shouldn't. And I'm just pointing out that there's a baseball field. However, to your right, there is an accessible baseball field that is made of artificial turf. There are also centrally located restrooms. There is a green, like, little hut pavilion thingy, and they have the restrooms there. And with the restrooms, there are three different types. There's a women's, there's a men's, and there's a family. And with all of those restrooms, I'm not sure if they had like adult changing tables or anything like that, but at least they have restrooms. There's also a concession stand, which was not open because I went Wednesday during the day and they don't have activities during the day, at least in April. Over the summer, if they do like all-star baseball, then obviously they're going to have something. But in October, it's football season, so the concession stands will be open. So if anyone needs to get anything to eat, they can do that as well. Now, you do not have to have restrooms or an accessible playground, and you may be confused by that, but allow me to explain. So, if all the other boxes are ticked off with the restroom, you can always rent porta potties. And with the accessible playground, there aren't a lot of spaces, sadly, that are accessible. Now, I should also mention too, so last year's park was not wheelchair accessible, like I had mentioned before. And again, the restrooms and the parking were far away from the actual pavilion itself. And now we're looking at another shaded pavilion so that we can have more vendors and we can have more sponsors in there and just stuff of the like. And this park has multiple pavilions, whereas the one that we used last year only had one giant pavilion. And TBH, I felt a little cramped under there. Now, what makes this park accessible as far as the playground structure? Glad you asked. So there's a ramp to get up to the actual structure itself. There's also right there, there's a ramp to get it to it and stuff, but it's like a little rocking play structure that a wheelchair user can actually enter. There's also this cute little play structure that anyone could play on. Even a wheelchair user can get themselves onto there. You may also see that there's some shade literally on the playground structure, which is great because a lot of individuals with spina bifida, myself included, are on bladder medications. And those bladder medications, woo, they can make you overheat like it's nobody's business. Also, some of our friends with autism have sensory sensitivities to extreme heat or just heat in general, so this is perfect for them as well. They also have special swings for individuals with special needs. I call them like Y shaped swings because in the front it's literally like the letter Y. And the reason why these types of swings are available, because if you think about it, with the baby swings, there are kids that are too old for those, unless if you try to be an idiot and get stuck in one of those and have to call the cops to get yourself out. Yes, we're looking at you. And with the older, like big kid swings and stuff, it's just basically a U shape and there's very little support. Whereas these have a back, which allows the disabled individual to lay back if need be. And that way, if it wasn't there, they would go, flopping out of the swing. And the front, because when they get pushed, that way they don't tumble and stumble over when they go forward. So having that extra support really helps. And afterwards, I had some time at the end and I decided to help heal my inner child. And I decided to try out this park for myself. And here is some footage of me doing that. And I did this because when I was younger, these parks weren't even an option for us. And to have something like this is so validating and just heals my inner child. And that's it. I thank you guys so much for watching this video and comment down below if you learned anything new. And I can't wait to see you guys again soon. Bye.